Hello, my name is Matthew Thompson. I'll be interviewing John F. Thompson, my father, with the assistance of my camerawoman, Mandy Prosser. It's 12/18/02. Okay, what year did you enlist?
1970.
Where?
Enlisted here in Rome, New York.
Okay. Why?
Family, Marine patriot, let's say. Everybody in the family was a Marine. I was just in a hurry.
Anything just accelerated even quicker, like problems at school or anything like that?
Problems in school. Not really happy what was going on. Bored. Things just didn't meet my criteria, you know?
Hmm. What happened after you enlisted?
When I enlisted, from boot camps,
Yeah, like, did you go straight to boot camp?
yeah,
Or?
when you go right straight to boot camp, you went to Albany, New York. You made your paperwork out, did a few tests, indoctrination into the Marine Corps. From there, they put you on a bus to the train station and to South Carolina, Parris Island, where you put on a Greyhound bus. And out front of this area, there were yellow footprints in the road. And this was a regular Greyhound bus line with regular passengers on it. And you had a DI come in there screaming, hollering like you were just part of the Marine Corps to get out of the bus, get your feet on the yellow line, on yellow footprints. That's where it started, at 3:30 in the morning.
What was basic training like at Parris Island?
I expected it to be tough, but not realizing how tough until you actually was involved in boot camp. It was all physical, endurance. Basically, that was their idea, build you up. It was like when I was in there, I only weighed 110 pounds, but when I graduated, I was 185. And it wasn't fat. When you start carrying telephone poles around or moving sand piles from one corner to the other with a bucket, you build yourself up. So it was pretty good size.
What was your drill sergeant like?
Gunnery Sergeant Thrasher. 3 tours in Vietnam. Big, tall black man. His responsibilities was to teach you all he knew, besides the regiment of boot camp, to make sure that you came home. Very good man.
Did you have any problems in boot camp? Like...
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you ever saw a DI, you would understand, with all the yelling and carrying on, they are very good comedians. Don't want to get into how they have to say it, but they're very good, and I constantly had to laugh. And you don't laugh when you're in boot camp. Laughing is not permitted. So they kind of tried to discipline me on many occasions not to laugh, but the more he did it, the more I laughed, so they apparently gave up. It was just, it was hard, but it was also entertaining. Good people. Good people. A lot of fun.
Did you ever get to go home on leave at any time, or?
Only twice. Right after advanced military training as a Camp Geiger, I was home for 14 days. And after my tours of duty, I was home for 14 days. So you're looking at a 3-year enlistment and being home 28 days.
Must have been pretty hard on you.
Yes, it was hard.
How'd your family take it?
Well, at the time, my older brother Steve, he was in the Marine Corps, except he was with the Air Wing, and he never left the United States. When I had orders to go to Vietnam, he signed a waiver, so he didn't have to. My sister, younger sister, was a Vietnam War protester, so you had an idea how she stood. Mike and Gordon was just a baby, and Mike was playing farm league baseball, so I don't know how they really, I can't recall on how they were.
Were they sad to see you leave?
Yeah, yeah. Especially Ma.
Did you have any special training while you were there for any specific
My
job?
training consists of advanced infantry training, and the other training that I received for the Amtrak was on-the-job training. But the advanced military training, or infantry training, was done at Camp Geiger, Camp Las Pogas in California, at Camp Pendleton, and some advanced jungle training in Okinawa at Camp Schwab.
Do you remember when you were shipped off?
What month? It was fall, late fall, 1970.
When you were shipped to Vietnam?
Mm-hmm.
What was the year again? I didn't.
1970?
Was when you got there?
No, 67.
67.
Where did 70 come from?
It's all right. What was the arrival in Vietnam like?
When was it arrived? We arrived under fire. There was, Da Nang was considered the rocket belt of Vietnam. North Vietnamese regulars in the Viet Cong used, I believe there were 81s, 61 mortars, and a rocket called the 122. They called it the freight train, because that's what it sounded like coming at you, a freight train. That was, within 2 hours of coming in the country, that was my welcoming.
Do you remember the first engagement you had with your platoon?
Yep, it was 3 days in the country in a village called Dai Doi. This is where Dong Ha came into play. I mean, I didn't go into it easy. I went into it very hard. And that was the Battle of Dong Ha.
What was that like?
What was it like? Let's say you're driving down the road in a truck. 3 trucks behind you. And in front of you, about 3,000 North Vietnamese regulars in single file marching your way. How it felt was after seeing them and reacting, it felt like 20 minutes, but actually it only took seconds before we dispersed and engaged. So it was kind of a Twilight Zone thing. They were there, what do you do now? So we did our business, and that was about 4 days of constant 24 hours fighting.
Kind of like getting thrown in the deep end, huh?
Very, very deep, without any help.
How many other engagements did you have afterwards?
Well, being with the 26th Marines, we were involved 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've had very little free time. If there was free time or a lull in an operation, we'd be sent to other companies or divisions. Like I was sent to the 1st Marine Air Wing as a door gunner in a Huey. and I was there for about 2 months. From there, I went to 1st Battalion, 26th Marines at Naval Bridge and was a sniper for about 30 days in a mite tower. There was other jobs like doing the mail, flying in, flying out.
What was delivering the mail like?
Delivering the mail. Never volunteered to deliver the mail. You would get on a CH-46, which was a troop carrier for the helicopters. The designation on the tail was Yankee Tango. You would board the helicopter. We were going to the USS John F. Kennedy to receive our mail. They would start throwing all these orange bags and yellow bags, and the crew chief of the helicopter was laying them out. You weren't throwing them in there. They were laying them on the ground, on the floor, in the Pacific design. And I didn't have a clue what they were going to do with it. But there was bags that were stacked 3 deep, so it was like a big cushy bed. As soon as you walked into that helicopter, it was like a big cushy bed. And I'm still trying to figure out why he didn't just pile them up and let's go. Well, we leave the aircraft carrier, and I noticed that we weren't flying in the same direction that we went. So I asked the crew chief. He said that we were called to go up the coast a little bit here and to hover at 1,500 feet and to wait for daylight. So I'm trying to figure out, what do you mean by wait for daylight? So we hovered for about 10 or 15 minutes, and over that radio I heard the captain ask if he hasn't seen anything yet. And the crew chief said, no, not yet. But it was like a matter of seconds after he said that, there was a beam of light coming through the side of the fuselage. And then 2 or 3 more. And then we left. The crew chief said, we have daylight. Apparently they dropped smoke in that area that dropped from the aircraft, which I believe was yellow. And lo and behold, there was 2 Huey Cobras right behind us, going down and shooting up the area that we just got shot at, because that's what we were there for. We were there to draw fire. That was the last time I went to get mail.
What were the men that you served with like?
We were kids. You gotta understand this. Our average age of the Marine over there was 18 years of age. We had guys who were 17. I was 17 when I went over. I mean, I celebrated 2 of my birthdays there. And if you looked at any of the pictures, you'd see all the boys. That's where we were. We were just kids, just like in high school, seniors. Just like in that room today. All these guys sitting around. All you had to do was just change the uniform. And you were there. A lot of responsibilities. Our officers were older. The 1st and 2nd lieutenants were in their mid-20s because they were college. Our captains and above were in their mid-30s, who we relied on as much as possible, seeing that we have an older adult, more experienced man there. But basically, yeah, we were kids. We were kids.
Did you have any other type of soldiers like South Vietnamese or Koreans or whoever worked with you?
We worked with the ARVNs. That was the South Vietnamese Army. We worked with Korean Marines from South Korea, Royal Australian Regiments, the Aussies from Australia, and we had a few Canadians in there too. There was a lot of countries involved in this war. Some didn't participate in any of the actions, but they were there on humanitarian sources, basically resource. Hospitals, nurses, communications. Other countries just gave a little here and a little there to participate because of the UN mandate.
Do you have any problems with them, or?
No, absolutely not. Except one Korean Marine. Just happened to be in a place called Baekdao. We were there to deliver mail to these people. Their compound was in the middle of nowhere. It actually looked like Fort Stanwix on a more miniature scale. On each corner of the fort, which we called it, there were howitzers. Every 10 feet along the walls was a .30 caliber machine gun. These guys meant business. But they were in the middle of nowhere, open to whatever. We went in there to take their mail, which we did. Was sitting at a picnic table in the center of their compound area, where everybody was eating at the time. And we opened up our sea rations. And from behind, this Korean Marine stuck his K-bar in my forehead. Scar still there. Because he wanted my sea rats. Because they were sick and tired of eating dog and monkey. So, within a matter of seconds, between him having his K-bar in my forehead, laughing, I had a .45 stuffed in his throat. So there was a pretty good standoff. I still end up with a scar on my forehead, but I ate my sea rats. And he ate his dog. So that was, and they actually thought it was funny because these people, that was the nature of the Korean Marine. Totally out of control. But good fighters.
What about the Australians?
Australians. I met one who was only a corporal. He stood maybe about 6'4", about 250 pounds, with the Korean hat, or the Australian hat, the Aussie hat. And I just kind of looked at him. I said, "How old are you?" I said, "About 38. And he was only a corporal. And I said, "You're kidding me." I asked him, I said, "You're only a corporal. How long have you been in the military?" He says, "All his life." Something like 20 years, and he was only a corporal. And we talked about it, and we were involved with a couple operations that the Australians were with. A lot of fun talking to them on the radio. But they were pretty busy people too.
Did you ever get them out of any scrapes or anything like that?
We got a lot of people out of scrapes. That was the 26th Marines. We got everybody out of those scrapes. Marines, Army. We had a few Navy barges that used to go up the Perfume River or Conviet River, Dinban River. I mean, there's rivers all over the place, and somebody would get saddled down. Being with an Amtrak, we could either take it through the water or on the land. We were constantly armored, but we'd always have the facilities to take care of the problem, let's say.
How are your commanding officers?
Commanding officers. The higher the rank, you never saw them unless it was an award ceremony. We really didn't see our commanders until we were aboard ship, because we would say they would be in the rear with the gear. So we didn't really see too many of our upper echelon officers. Our platoon officers would be first and second lieutenants. A good percent of them were 90-day wonders, second lieutenants, who didn't live very long because of their attitude. The ones that had more time and more experience would be a first lieutenant to captain. They were good, they were part of our crew. But there were certain individuals with a patent image of themselves. you say. That didn't get him anywhere. Didn't help him with the troops. It didn't help him with situations.
Was there any time that you were captured or anything of that
Long
sort?
story, 1969, on a, what we call snoop and poop operation into Cambodia, where we weren't supposed to be. It was for the 69 Tet operation. How that was working, the North Vietnamese Viet Cong would go on a big operation, and then it would fall back and cross either the Cambodian or Laotian border. And we were sent there to reconnoiter the place, look around, see what we can find, and report back. Especially troop numbers, equipment. Well, that one particular day we had become detained by the Khmer Rouge of Cambodia, which was the official army of Cambodia. The United States worked with them, but they went either way, depending on their situation. In our situation, they detained us. Some people would say captured us, became POWs. But in our business, we were just detained. They put 8 of us in a hole, and what I gathered that they were going to release us after this North Vietnamese group that came in before us, that they were staying there at their facilities, so we didn't see them. So any good Marine waits for the opportunity. Within 72 hours, they made a mistake. We removed these individuals, put them back down into the hull. We had no weapons. We used their weapons and trying to get back to friendly lines because our LZ that when we were supposed to get picked up, we didn't show, so they knew something was wrong. So we're roughly 200 miles away from friendlies, and we have to make our way back on foot. It took us 6 to 8 weeks to get to friendly people, but on our way back, we had interesting times. We definitely made our presence known by using their equipment, the North Vietnamese or the Viet Cong. We used their equipment after we took care of them. And I don't know if we really got in trouble or we received the ribbon for it because we really made a hell of a mess getting back. We destroyed a lot of equipment of theirs, destroyed a lot of food, weapons, ammo, vehicles. We did most of it at night, stayed low during the day. We traveled along sides of roads, and if they were impassable, we'd go around them. It may take 2 or 3 days to get around them, where it was only going to take you 200 yards to get past what you had to. It would take us 2 to 3 days to get around that obstacle. But we always made sure that we left that obstacle disabled. But that was 6 to 8 months, or 6 to 8 weeks, I'm sorry. And that's when the Marine Corps sent a little letter to my mother, saying that I was missing in action. It was put in a newspaper. Apparently my mother just put that information that she authorized, but not to put anything that I was dead, because she knew in her heart I was still out there. And it was just her idea of thinking, it's just a matter of time, and I'll get back to him. But it was pretty tragic for Mom to get the letter, and a visit from our recruiter who brought it. and I believe it was a couple other Marines from Utica or Albany. And she knew in her mind that I was okay, just a little bit out of it for a while, but we got back. Red Cross was involved quite a bit with that too.
Did you ever get any field commissions or any
Field
promotions?
commissions, yes. Guess I don't have a list. A lot of unit citations, anywhere from 3 to 5, depending on the meritorious unit citations, Navy unit citations, presidential unit citations, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantries, combat action ribbons. And we're waiting for additional ribbons that were awarded to our unit after I left. So there's quite a few.
Did any of your men that you were with for the 2 years that you had your terms, did any of them look up to you or see you as the old man of a group?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I was called string bean for a while because I was so skinny. I lost all that weight from boot camp eating rice and fish heads and veggies, and the way the Vietnamese cooked it, everything was very hot. I didn't care for it, so I stayed with the rice and sea rations. But when you have the time in country and you have new people coming in, yeah, you're the old man. You may be 18 years old, but you look 30. And so it's fascinating how that happens. And when you turn 19, you look 40. So that young kid that was sitting in a classroom from being 17 or 18 comes back an old man with a whole different outlook on life. So there's a big change. There's a big change.
Was there any engagements that really stuck on your mind?
Well, there was operations, some of the largest in Vietnam were Taylor Commons, Allenbrook, Napoleon Saline. There was maybe 4 major operations that included all armed services that were quite impressive because of the areas that we went into. Being in I Corps in the Ashaw Valley, which covered a lot of area, or the Quang Tri Province, or the Cu Viet area, were all hot areas. And you couldn't do it with just one battalion or one division. It took many, because there were so many North Vietnamese and Viet Cong involved. You're talking up to 20,000, 30,000 people. So they were quite impressive. They were quite busy. Some days you weren't. Some days you just went on patrol, or you went on an ambush. Hot, 110 degrees, 100% humidity. Miserable. Nothing happened. Didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing. So you sit there in a little hole, or you're squatting, waiting for something to happen for 8 to 10 hours. So, some days you had slow days, but most of the times you had busy days.
Did you really care for any of the politics that were going on?
My politics changed during, where from 67 to 68, they were conducting this action as if we would understand it by, if we were assigned to go after somebody, we'd go after them. But things changed with President Nixon. And in 1969 in the fall, we had what they call a stand down, a ceasefire of sorts, where we were only allowed to shoot unless they were shooting at us. So they would have to initiate a firefight before we could initiate ours, where we could see the North Vietnamese regulars diddy bopping up and down the beach with mortars, ammunition, food, and we knew that evening that they would hit us. A place called Sea Anchor, right outside Monkey Mountain, was where they did this to us. This is where my last station, or outpost was. And they'd hit us every night during that stand-down.
You said in quite a few things about like Khe Sanh, Way City, and a few other places. What were they like?
Well, like I was talking to the other students in the classroom, a fire base or an LZ, they're similar to the Griffiths facility here. They're huge, gigantic. You have runways for the Air Force or for the Marines. That's for jet aircraft, cargo planes. Then you have helo areas for the helicopters. There are many sources, different sources of helicopters, like the CH-53, the 46, the Hueys, all done in compartments. If you look at from the air, you can see where every compartment of air wing was. It was a huge facility, and what we were there for was to protect this facility. You had tank battalions around it. You had infantry, different regiments around there. Like in Khe Sanh in 1969, the 26th Marines were in charge. We had the first 126 in the center. We had 326 in the lower portion of the northern section, and 226 in the southern section. And not too far from us was 19. They covered us if something happened to us. They were our reinforcements if we had to call them in. And in 1969 in Khe Sanh, yeah, we called everybody in because of the overrun. They were getting overrun. A facility as large as Griffiths was getting overrun by 20,000 Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, and Viet Cong. And you could see them running through the compounds, just throwing satchel charges anywhere they could. It was complete chaotic. It was just, you didn't know who was who. A lot of that continued day and night, or you had to make sure you were constantly yelling, who are you, or what, what's going on? And if you didn't get an answer back, you went after that person. So it was just plain chaotic.
Did you have any real problems with the Viet Cong?
Other than a lot of respect for them, no. They could make anything out of nothing. A C-rack can becomes a bouncing Betty. The plungy pits, they're swinging mines, all done by hand. Old technology that worked. Everything they made worked, no matter how primitive it was. They were good soldiers. Very good. A lot of respect for them.
It just wasn't men though, in Viet Cong, was
No.
it?
I would say it's 50-50, a lot of women and a lot of men. The age group was just like us. It was like from age 14 years of age with the Vietnamese. The North Vietnamese, you can understand, was a regular army, just like the Marine Corps Army in the United States. The Viet Cong were rebels. They picked up anybody. And they also volunteered you from different villages. If you were old enough, was able to carry a weapon, you were become a Viet Cong, one way or the other. You were going to become it. Because that's the way the communists worked over there. If there was a family with a 12 or 13-year-old, didn't matter, male or female, you just got enlisted into the Viet Cong. Now if you didn't, one of your parents would end up dead. Or younger sister or younger brother. But that's how they recruited their people, going to different villages. And if the villages didn't cooperate, they'd wipe the village out. men, women, children, they'd wipe them out because they didn't cooperate.
I've heard some pretty bad stories about what some of the women used to do with the children
Yeah,
in the Viet Cong.
extraordinary how they did that. But being in the Far East, I don't understand if life didn't mean really a whole lot to these people, because they would give satchel charges to children, and the parents would direct them in the area they'd want them to go, and let it go. I mean, it happened too many times. Too many times.
What was it like when you were nearing the end of your 2 terms?
Well, I knew when it was time for me to leave, and the problem was they forgot about me for 3 months, which really upset me. And I kept haunting our first sergeant and our headquarters people, and they didn't really have a clue. So I ended up going on some patrols and some ambushes, and this was all done at Monkey Mountain. And one day a helicopter landed, and they were looking for Lance Corporal Thompson to be sent back to the States as soon as possible. And it took me about 2 minutes to get my stuff together, wave to the guys who were going on that patrol I was supposed to go on that day, and I left. Went to Da Nang, got cleaned up, hopped on a plane, and went to Okinawa. We flew into, I think it was White Beach, or Kadena Air Force Base, and from there transferred to Camp Butler, which was a rehab station directly across from Camp Hansen. And what they did there was reevaluate you as a person, where they're going to teach you how to eat, how to speak, how to carry on a conversation without using some naughty words, expressions, or being physical, because learning how to use a knife, fork, and spoon again. And they were there for quite a while until they thought it was okay to release you. I was released and sent back to the United States. I know there was a problem before they released us. It was like hours before we were supposed to catch a flight, and I didn't have all my ribbons on my uniform, because when you went back to the States you had to be squared away. So apparently I got one off a couple sergeants that were working there, and they kind of scrambled, found some ribbons, and put them all together, and then I got hopped on the plane in Da Nang. It was funny how they got us in Da Nang, because they put us in cattle pens. That's how they put you. You're out on a flight line, and it was like a cattle pen. And for this flight, you were in this cattle pen. And there was another cattle pen where there was other guys going to catch another flight. And it was a Flying Tiger. It was a 707. And we flew back to the United States, landed in El Toro, California. Went to dispersing there, and they gave me some paperwork to fill out. Got some money, real money, because all we did was work with NPC, which was our funny money that we had in Vietnam. So I got real cash, some money in my pocket, and I caught my first flight, or we took a bus to Los Angeles Airport, where I was introduced to the new teenagers, young adults. And we were on the walking, what do you want to call it, escalator? And being yelled at that we were baby killers, and just, I don't know, we got a lot of flack, you know, just being back. So I took the young gentleman out. I didn't think of anything about it. I felt good. I wasn't a baby killer. And none of the other fellas that were behind me were baby killers. We did get a lot of bad raps for everything that happened over there. But that was how our anti-war protesters work. They wouldn't, they made the situation worse. From there, from Los Angeles, I made it to Chicago. American Airlines. I got bumped off of 6 flights. 6 flights I got bumped off of because we were on military standby. And I remember laying down inside the terminal. I had my sea bag on the side. I was in my dress greens at the time. And my orders, which I was holding, and I was sleeping, I was laying down sleeping, which was not good for any military man coming through, because the military police were in the terminal, and they made sure that you would stay awake, sitting at attention, or doing what you're supposed to if you're in the military. You just don't go around sleeping on these couches that they had there. So they woke me up and they wanted to see my orders. They saw the medals that I had on, and they questioned them, because I was only a Lance Corporal. So by the time they got done reading my orders, they apologized and went on their way. They said, "Welcome home." So eventually I made it from Chicago to Syracuse. Syracuse, I picked up a flight. It was a Mohawk Airlines flight. They were 12 seats up front, and the rest was all male. It was a real wild ride. So I had a chance to call them on. I said, "Okay, we're flying in from Chicago to Syracuse, and then from Syracuse to Utica, New York, at Oneida County Airport." That's where we flew in. I flew in with a male and a couple other passengers. And there to meet me was Mary, my sister, my mother and grandmother was there to pick me up. And we did all our hugs and kisses. Everything was fine. We get into her car, and off we go. And being away from any type of vehicle or road or sense of being safe in the United States, the speed at which she was going, she was doing 45 miles an hour, but to me, she was doing 150. So I told her to stop or slow down, or I was going to get out and walk home. It was pretty interesting that day. Getting home, went back up to my old bedroom, put my stuff away. I had no clothes, none at all. All I had was my uniforms. So an interesting thing that happened that next day, they installed a siren at the corner of the street for the noon whistle. And the only time we had sirens at Marble Mountain, Monkey Mountain, Quezon, Fubai, was when incoming was coming in. A siren let loose, like a noon siren. And when that went off, I was underneath my bed. And my mother heard all the scrambling around up there, and she came up there and just looked at me and just, she knew. I mean, she apologized. She told her, didn't tell me that there was a siren on the corner because it didn't seem to be important at the time. But for that instant, I thought I was in a dream, that I was back, never left. It was nothing but a dream. But we'll come around.
How'd your brothers and sister take it when you got back?
My older brother, still in the Marine Corps, in the Air Wing. At that time, I think he was a staff sergeant now. He accepted me coming back. Mike, younger brother, I can't really recall about Mike or Gordon, my sister. She was, everybody standoff really. They really didn't really want to question me, other than that I was home, I was safe, so they didn't have to worry anymore. So life went on. There was, even myself, just sitting out on the front porch for the first time in 2 years. Just watching everyday life go on. It's like a nightmare. It took a long time to get over it, to recover.
Did you find that like every little thing, like sometimes like you had a thunderstorm or the siren going off, that you just flash back to where it was? Or?
I had a problem with cut grass, smell of cut grass. And Griffiths was still operating here, and every once in a while a helicopter would go over. So the combination of summertime with the heat and humidity, the cut grass, and an occasional helicopter going over, it was there. Thunder, it might catch me off guard, but during that couple years of recovery, I called it, there were still a lot of bad days, because you'd doze off, sleep, you'd have a nightmare, and should call it a daymare. I mean, I could be anywhere and just fall asleep, because sleep to me now was a gift, something I never had, a chance to sleep and relax. But back in your mind, things are still happening. You know? You're afraid to go to sleep because you don't want to dream, because then you think that dream is another dream. So which is real, you know?
Just to bounce back a little bit, when you were in Vietnam, were you ever wounded?
Yes, quite a few times. We're going to have this one. 1968, on a patrol, we were heading out to set up an ambush, and we were doing our business, looking. You got to look on the ground constantly for booby traps and tripwires. And you're definitely moving, you're looking. You're going to get to your one spot, set up your ambush, and then wait it out. Well, that day, I had this horrible pain in my left thigh. And as I looked down, there was an arrow sticking out of it. And I let out this howling thing. We got an ambush, everybody was down, and they just looked at me. We're all on the ground. They're firing over my head, and they're looking at me, and I got this crossbow arrow sticking out of my thigh. And I'm just yelling and carrying on. I'm not firing, I'm just looking at this thing like, what the hell did they do this for? So, I was hounding for hours while those guys were taking care of the ambush that we just walked into. I mean, I was the only casualty in the group, but I just harped on like you wouldn't believe. What are they doing shooting a crossbow at me? Look how close he got to my jewels. What is going on here? So, when you get hit like that, we have little packs of morphine. And they come like a little bulb with a needle in it, and it's kind of like between your fingers, and you slap it on your leg, and the morphine gets injected. So I'm half high as a kite, still looking at this crossbow arrow pulsating into my leg, and our medic that was with us, Doc, called in a medevac and got me out of there, still harping about this arrow. I'd have been rather shot with a rifle or something, but not an arrow. And they brought me into Da Nang at one of the medevac areas. They x-rayed it, and I'm still bitching. I'm still confused. What is this thing in my leg? So, oh, we heard that they were using, the Viet Cong would use anything, but the crossbow is just hard to believe. But with the x-rays, they weren't sure if it was tainted with anything or it had a shell inside it. So to extract the arrow, they put me in a sandbagged area, apparently must be used quite often, and removed the arrow out of my leg, and I was still bitching up a storm. Why an arrow? Look at this.
Can I keep it?
Oh, I didn't want to keep it.
Yeah.
And it hurt. It hurt really bad. Now that was in '68. There was other times in '68 where you'd pick up shrapnel in your face and your body from bullets ricocheting off inside the tractor, because it was all steel inside the tractor, and the first thing that the Vietnamese wanted to do was shoot inside the tractor. Because we're getting our troops out, we're trying to close the doors on this thing, and they'll try to lob an RPG grenade launcher in there. That was their moment of opportunity to take this unit out, was get something in there big. So we end up with a lot of shrapnel from grenades, bullets that were spent inside the air in the crap. Because once it started to ricochet, it started to split apart. You'd get it. We'd always got it in the back of our heads, and in the back of our back ends, and whatever. That's happened numerous times. I mean, everybody's put in for Purple Hearts. I'd end up, everybody in our whole outfit would probably end up with 30 Purple Hearts, which didn't really make any sense. That went on a weekly basis. You had something, and you made the decision, not your company. You made the decision, okay, this is worthy of a Purple Heart. So I accepted only 2.
For the arrow and...
I took, our CO just couldn't believe it anyway. Nobody could believe that. I didn't believe it. Yeah, I took that Purple Heart with a big grin on my face, because nobody would have believed it. The second one I accepted is when in '69 we were on another ambush, and we set our claymores up, and apparently we had a good set of people that was on the other side who turned the claymores around on us.
What is a claymore?
Claymore is maybe, I want to say, a foot by 8 inches rectangle. It's concave. Behind it is a C4 pack, high explosive, and it's packed with double lock buck BBs, very large BBs. And it's an anti-personnel mine, so you have what you call a mouse trap that will ignite these things, and it'll take out an area. And the area, the way how we had it set up in our zone of the ambush, we had an L ambush set up. It's going to take you from the chest down. In the position where they had us, the medic said it was going to take us from the waist down. And that's where most of us took it, from the waist down, when they turned their own claymores on us. I mean, it wasn't that we weren't vigilant, we were on the ball, we were awake. It's just that they were that good.
They just snuck up and turned them around.
They just turned them around. Unreal. They were very good. So I accepted that one too. But through the 2 tours, you know, took a lot of metal. We're still picking it out.
Yeah, I've heard also about some of the wildlife that was there. One like bamboo viper, was it?
Yeah, we had bamboo vipers, very small snake, brilliant green. It would take you out in less than 20 seconds. So if you received a bite from this, you said goodbye. We had tigers, like a Bengal tiger, except they were tigers from northern Vietnam and out of Cambodia and Laos. Leopards, even had bears over there. Bears. there was quite a bit. Wild boar, all over the place, great to eat. If they just happened to hit one of our landmines, it was just fine. We had a pig roast.
Ready to serve.
Ready to go. Snakes, bugs. I want to talk about bugs. A small centipede would be maybe about an inch in length here. Over there, it'd be anywhere up to a foot in length. Everything was gigantic as bugs. So you really didn't know what was crawling on you because you always slept out in the open. You slept in a hole, and every once in a while, one of these little insects would drop into your hole and spend the night with you. So you had to be careful.
When you were lost for, well, I shouldn't say lost, but when you were detained, did you have to live off the land like the Korean Marines did? Or?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We took what we could get, what we could scrounge. Papaya. They had a lot of papaya over there, wild papaya. And some other exotic fruits. But if we had a chance to remove some supplies from a group that didn't belong to us, oh yeah, we took advantage of it. So, I mean, we didn't starve. We ate quite well. It was just the idea of getting back. That was the trick.
Hmm. So coming home was a pretty big change from what you were so used to.
Yeah, it was. Like I came to another different world. I saw things differently than when I was before as a high school student, where you didn't take much for advantage. You worried about the next school dance, church dance, who was going to buy the beer for that weekend, where you could buy 3 quarts for $1 and have a good time. Driving around, going to different towns in the area here, picking up girls, cruising Dominic Street. Oh yeah, on Saturdays, Friday nights and Saturdays. It was the care in the world. Listening to WKAL on the radio as loud as you could put it while you were cruising up down Dominic Street. Oh yeah, big difference. It recovery took a long time, long time.
You think you kind of grew up a little bit?
Did I grow up?
Yeah, from it?
I grew old. I still am. Yeah. That's one thing that happens. You had your child life, like growing up through puberty. You get into your teenage life. My teenage life only lasted 3 years. That's all, just 3. I missed a lot. I don't know if I'd like to do it again, but I missed Woodstock. I missed a lot of good stuff. I missed the company of a woman for all those years. At the time I was engaged to my first wife over there, which turned out to be a mistake.
It wasn't too bad. We got 3 out of it, 3 good kids.
Yeah. But coming back to the States and trying to start a new life was difficult. Through the VA, seeing psychologists and psychiatrists. I mean, there was a lot of us there. But it seems to be the ones, I mean, some guys that were only there for 1 tour had a problem. Or there were guys that had 1 tour and didn't have a problem. No, there was really no problem. It all depending on the situation that you were put into over there. Like I said, the 26th Marines was not a good outfit to be in because you were sent everywhere and anywhere. So we were busy.
I'm gonna use a quote from Oliver Stone, but did you lose your innocence when you were there?
Yes. I lost my morality. I lost a lot. To kill a person. No. And I took a lot of people. And I still live with it. You know. It shouldn't happen to anybody, but it happens.
What did it all mean for you?
What does it all mean for
Yeah,
me?
just and did it have its reasons, or did it have?
At the time, yeah, it did have reasons. It had a lot of reasons. The communists, their way of thinking, we saw it with the villages. If they didn't cooperate with these people, they would take them out. There was nothing left of them. Their communist doctrine, even by seeing interviews on TV of these North Vietnamese officers, just watch their eyes. That's all you gotta do is watch their eyes and the way they speak to you. Complete dominance, that's what they were. The communist regime over there. Complete dominance. They're gonna control your life, control you how you eat, think, dream. They'll even control the weather, I think. That's what the Communist Party was, and we were there to stop it.
Would you say that that experience with the war helped you become a better person? You know, just think of things in
Oh,
a
absolutely.
better sense.
You had the things that you took for granted meant a lot. A lot of things. Especially family, friends,
Sleep.
sleep, especially sleep. I can't get enough sleep. I'm still paying for it. But I love sleep. Other than, is that your phone?